Good to see you, and welcome to Drift Stories. Before we begin tonight's cozy story, I invite you to take a moment to get comfortable in your bed. Let your eyes soften, let your breath slow, and allow the day to gently fade away. You don't need to do anything, just listen and drift. And now, enjoy listening to Reunion in Bruges. The rain in Bruges wasn't heavy, but persistent, the kind that tapped against cobblestones and clung gently to coats. Anna stood under the overhang of the station, holding the strap of her overnight bag and watching the mist drift between bicycles and taxis. The air smelled faintly of wet stone and roasted chestnuts. She spotted Peter first, a little hunched under a gray umbrella that looked like it had been forgotten in the back of a closet. He waved when he saw her, his shoulders relaxing as he approached. "You look exactly the same," he said, folding his umbrella as he neared. "You look soggy." Anna smiled, leaning in for a quick, practiced hug. Peter chuckled. "Train was late. Again. Brussels was chaos." "Of course it was." She said it like a reflex, then softened. "I'm glad you came." He nodded, but the words felt heavier than they should. The last time they'd been together, all of them, was 3 years ago at a funeral. Now it was a birthday. That felt better. Clara arrived 15 minutes later, skidding across the sidewalk in boots that looked dangerously smooth-soled. She was dragging a suitcase with one hand and holding a to-go coffee in the other. Her hair was pulled into a loose braid that had begun to unravel in the drizzle. "Am I the last one?" she said, out of breath and unapologetic. "You're always the last one," Peter said, but he was smiling. They hugged, the kind of embrace that comes with long pauses and the quiet relief of people who know each other well but haven't spoken enough. Then the three of them made their way toward the B&B, rolling their bags through damp alleyways and uneven stone. The place was called Maison Godefroid, a three-story house tucked along one of the quieter canals. It had ivy growing thick along the left side and a pale blue door that stuck a little when Peter pushed it open. Inside, the warmth hit them all at once. Wood floors, the faint smell of cinnamon, and the soft echo of rain against glass. A man with kind eyes and a checkered scarf welcomed them. "You must be the Mitchells. I'm Thomas. Please, shoes off, warm tea in the lounge, and I'll take your keys." The lounge had lace curtains and worn armchairs. Anna sat near the window, watching the water ripple with passing raindrops. Clara was already examining a small bookshelf, thumbing through a tourist guide from 1998. Peter, ever quiet, just sat and let the heat sink in. "You think she's already here?" Clara asked, finally settling beside Anna. "She texted me from the bakery," Anna replied. "Something about buying little cakes." Peter smirked. "You'd think turning 70 would slow her down." Anna didn't answer right away. She's been looking forward to this. They all knew what that meant. Their mother, Marie, had organized the entire thing, picked brews, booked the rooms, even sent everyone handwritten notes. "No obligations," she had written. "Just come. Be together. That's the gift." None of them had refused. Their rooms were small but cozy. Anna's looked out over the canal, with an old radiator that clinked when it warmed up. Peter's had an antique writing desk, which he immediately placed his folded coat on. Clara's had string lights and a little window that opened to the rooftops behind them. They agreed to meet back downstairs at 6 for dinner, a little Italian place down the street per Marie's instructions. She'd join them there. As Anna unpacked, she paused at the sight of a photograph she'd tucked in her bag. The three of them as kids, standing in front of a cherry tree in bloom, all squinting in the sun. Peter looked irritated. Clara was mid-blink, and Anna was holding their dog's leash. She set it on the bedside table. Outside, the rain began to slow. The light dimmed into that quiet blue Bruges seemed to wear like a shawl. In that moment, the city felt soft, like something waiting. Anna woke early the next morning, the kind of early where the sky hadn't yet decided on a color. She sat by the window in her room with a blanket around her shoulders, watching as Bruges slowly revealed itself through the light fog. Across the canal, rooftops stretched in quiet rows, chimneys sent wisps of smoke into the sky, and the spire of the belfry stood tall in the distance, dim and noble. The air was still, and even the birds seemed hesitant to break the silence. Her phone buzzed, a message from her mother. Breakfast is downstairs. Coffee's good. Come hungry. Anna smiled and stretched. She dressed slowly, pulled her hair into a loose bun, and made her way down the narrow wooden stairs pallet which creaked just enough to feel like home. The breakfast room smelled like toast and fruit. Marie was already at the table, her red scarf draped loosely over her chair, stirring sugar into a small cup of coffee. "You're up early," Anna said. "I've been up for hours," Marie replied, cheerful. "I walked along the canal, saw 3 swans and a man fishing in gloves." Anna sat across from her and helped herself to warm croissants and slices of cheese. "That sounds exactly like Bruges." "It does," Marie agreed, smiling. "How is your room?" "Quiet. Lovely. The view is nice. I can see the belfry." "Good," her mother nodded. "That's the best room. I saved it for you." Peter appeared next, half awake, wearing the same sweater from yesterday. He made a quiet beeline for the coffee and said nothing until his second sip. "I forgot how strong European coffee is," he mumbled. "You say that every time you leave the country," Anna said, amused. Still true. Clara was last. Her braid had come undone again, and she had a camera slung around her neck. "You've been out already?" Anna asked. Clara nodded as she poured orange juice. The light was perfect around the square. I think I caught a photo of a woman feeding pigeons in front of a chocolate shop. Felt very Belgian. Marie beamed at them all, pleased. "Tonight we'll go to that place near the plaza, the one with the wood oven and the little string lights." "Do you mean the Italian place?" Anna asked. "Yes, that's the one," Marie said. "They have excellent mushroom risotto." The rest of the morning passed gently. Anna wandered a bookshop tucked into an alley. Peter took a walk with no clear destination. Clara sat along a canal wall sketching a line of bicycles. That evening, they met outside the Italian restaurant Marie had described. It was tucked under a warm yellow awning with 2 small lanterns at the door and windows that glowed amber from the inside. The smell of rosemary and garlic met them before they even walked in. They sat at a table near the back, under a string of tiny lights woven into dried vines. The room was full but quiet, mostly locals, it seemed, with the occasional couple speaking Low French or Dutch. The food came slowly, the kind of pace that invited talking between bites. Marie told a story about the first time she came to Bruges before any of them were born, and how she had gotten lost trying to find a bakery she'd seen in a postcard. "I never did find it," she said, laughing, "but I found better ones." Peter talked about the students in his literature class who had never heard of Hemingway. Clara shared a photo on her camera screen, a child bundled in a red coat throwing bread to ducks near a stone bridge. Anna mostly listened. It felt good to be quiet, to just be among them. When the meal ended, they stepped out into the soft night. The belfry loomed in the distance, its top lit with a quiet golden glow. They walked slowly back through the cobbled streets. No one was in a rush. The air smelled of wood smoke and damp earth. A dog barked once from behind a gate. Church bells rang far off, not quite midnight, but close. Back at the B&B, Anna stood at her window again, the same blanket around her shoulders. This time the belfry stood in full view, calm, certain, and older than anything she could name. She wasn't sure why, but it made her feel steadier too. It was raining again the next morning, but softly. The kind of rain that coated the windows like breath and turned the cobblestones darker, shinier, somehow more beautiful. Bruges looked like a painting under glass. Clara was the first downstairs this time, already in boots, damp curls escaping her hood. "I want waffles," she said by way of greeting. "Like good ones, crispy edges. I've been thinking about them since we got here." Peter entered behind her, carrying a book under one arm. "Didn't realize waffles were urgent." "They are," Clara said seriously. "And I found a cafe that does the Liege-style ones with sugar crystals. It's only a 10-minute walk." Marie chuckled from the far end of the room, where she was sipping tea and reading the local paper like she'd lived there all her life. "You should follow her. That cafe makes the best waffles in Bruges." Anna raised an eyebrow. "How do you know?" "I asked Thomas," Marie said, flipping the page. "He has waffle opinions." By 10:30, the four of them were walking down Lindenstraat, umbrellas bobbing over their heads like little boats in a gray sea. The cafe wasn't far. A corner spot with steamy windows and a tiny blue sign that simply read, "Zoet." Inside was a world away from the drizzle. The air was sweet and warm, filled with the smell of melted butter and browning sugar. Wooden tables were spaced close together, and the walls were painted soft green with mismatched art hanging slightly crooked. They tucked themselves into a corner booth. The table was slightly sticky, and Clara declared it perfect. A cheerful waitress in a bright red apron came over. "4 waffles?" "Please," said Clara, like it was a sacred ritual. Peter ordered a cappuccino. Anna chose hot chocolate. Marie asked for mint tea and smiled when the waitress said they steep it with fresh leaves. The waffles arrived on stoneware plates, golden and sugar-dusted, with warm syrup in tiny pitchers and dollops of whipped cream that didn't last long. There wasn't much talking. There was chewing and sighing and a kind of shared appreciation you don't need words for. Clara looked especially pleased, cutting her waffle into perfect squares. "You know," she said between bites, "we should do this every year." Peter raised an eyebrow. Eat waffles? Come somewhere. Together. Not just for reasons. Just because." Anna looked thoughtful. "We could." Marie sipped her tea. "We should." Outside the rain continued, but inside Zoet everything glowed. A family near the window shared a laugh over a spilled drink. A man at the bar read the newspaper with a pastry balanced on his knee. Peter leaned back in his chair. "I forgot what this felt like." "What?" Anna asked. "Just being still." No one rushed to leave. When they finally did, they left a generous tip and a thank you in clumsy Dutch. Back outside, the rain had thinned to mist, and the world felt freshly washed. They walked without speaking for a while, passing chocolate shops, lace boutiques, and postcard stands. Bruges didn't ask for anything. It just existed, soft and still, waiting to be noticed. Clara paused to take a picture of a bicycle leaning against a canal railing. The basket had tulips in it, though slightly drooping from the weather. Peter took out his book again once they returned to the B&B. Marie settled into the parlor with her knitting. Anna, surprisingly, went back out, just for a walk. She didn't go far, just down the canal and back, letting the quiet settle in her chest. The waffle had warmed her, yes, but it wasn't just the food. It was the being together, the ease of it, the rediscovery of rhythms she hadn't realized she'd missed. Back in her room, she changed into dry socks and pulled the blanket over her lap. Through the lace curtain, she could just make out the top of the belfry again, this time shrouded in clouds. She smiled and whispered to herself, "Good waffles." And then, quieter, "Good morning." The rain held off after lunch, leaving Bruges under a sky of shifting grays and silvers. The streets were damp but walkable, and the canals reflected the clouds like long, soft mirrors. Peter suggested the boat ride. It's touristy, he admitted, but kind of a must. Marie lit up. Your father and I did one the first time we came. He kept pretending to steer from the back row like he was the captain. I can picture that, Anna said, pulling on her scarf. They made their way to the dock near Rosenhode Kai, where the boats bobbed gently against the wooden piers. A man in a navy raincoat and thick gloves waved them forward. 20 minutes, all along the canals, he said, his accent smooth and practiced. Plenty of time to fall in love with the city, or again with each other. He grinned and helped Marie down the narrow step into the boat. They took their seats along the edges. The boat was low and open, with wide benches and a small motor that hummed quietly beneath them. As they pulled away from the dock, the city shifted perspective. From the water, everything looked more secretive. Back gardens trailing vines into the canal, kitchen windows glowing amber, laundry lines strung like garlands between stone walls. Peter leaned over the edge slightly, watching the ripples. I always forget how close the houses are to the water, he said. People hang tea towels from the windows, Clara added, like decorations. Anna sat back, hands in her lap, letting the motion carry her thoughts. The guide pointed to buildings as they passed. A centuries-old brewery, a convent with whitewashed walls, a bridge once used by horse-drawn carts. But his voice faded into the background like soft music as the moment became more about feeling than hearing. A breeze drifted across the boat, cool and clean. It ruffled Marie's hair, and she didn't fix it. She simply looked up at the open sky and smiled as if to say, "This is exactly what I wanted." Halfway through the ride, they passed under a low, ivy-covered bridge. A couple walking across it paused to wave. Clara waved back, then lifted her camera to catch the way the bridge framed the water. I want to print some of these, she said. Make a little book, one of those photo essays. Call it Canals and Croissants, Peter said. Clara laughed. Perfect. As the boat curved around a narrow bend, the guide quieted for a moment. The canal narrowed here, and the water grew stiller. They floated between tall brick buildings, their reflections perfect in the glassy surface below. It felt like time paused. No one spoke. Even the breeze seemed to stop. Anna looked at each of them, her siblings, her mother, and felt something soft unfold inside her. They hadn't said anything meaningful today. No grand speeches, no heavy moments, but somehow in this space it felt like they were healing something unspoken, repairing it not with words, but with waffles and walks and quiet boat rides. The guide spoke again, light and friendly, but Anna barely heard him. Her eyes were on the water. The tour ended back where it started, and the guide helped each of them off with steady hands. Thank you, he said, tipping his cap. Enjoy the rest of your stay. And if the rain comes back, remember, Bruges looks best in a drizzle. Back on the cobblestones, they lingered a moment, reluctant to move on too quickly. Marie rested a hand on the railing and looked out over the water. Your father would have liked this, she said softly. Peter nodded. So do we. They turned and headed back toward town, a little slower now, the kind of slow that comes when something inside has shifted, just slightly, but meaningfully. As they walked past the market square, the belfry loomed once more overhead, watching quietly, as if it had been listening all along. That evening, after a quiet dinner of soup and crusty bread at the B&B, the family retreated to the lounge. Rain had returned, not a storm, but a steady patter on the windows, a rhythm that made conversation quieter, slower. The fire in the hearth was mostly embers. Marie sat with a folded piece of paper in her lap. She hadn't mentioned it during the day, hadn't shown it at dinner, but now she held it between her fingers like it was something fragile, important. Peter was the first to notice. "What's that?" he asked. Marie looked down at the paper, then up at her children. "It's a letter," she said simply, "from your father." Anna sat up straighter. "From when?" "From before you were born," Marie said. "He wrote it while we were here the first time. I found it a few weeks ago, tucked in an old journal." Clara leaned forward. "You didn't tell us." Marie smiled gently. "Some things wait for the right moment." She unfolded the letter slowly. The paper was yellowed around the edges, creased, and a little soft from years of being hidden away. She cleared her throat. "If you're reading this, we're either back home or still wandering Bruges with cold hands and full hearts. I don't know what it is about this city. It's quiet without being dull, romantic without trying. It's the kind of place that lets you feel everything in a softer way. I can picture us coming back here one day, older, slower, maybe with grown-up kids who forget to call us. You'll remind me where we stayed, and I'll forget the name of the bakery you loved. And maybe we'll sit along a canal just like we did today, with nothing important to say, but everything still worth saying. That's the kind of life I want. If I'm gone, keep this. Read it when you miss me. And tell the kids, if we have any, that I wanted a life full of ordinary days with them. Nothing fancy, just love, and maybe waffles." The room was still when she finished. No one cried, though Anna's eyes were glassy and Peter had his hand against his mouth like he wasn't sure what to do with it. Clara whispered, "That sounds exactly like him." Marie folded the letter carefully and placed it on the table between them. "He wasn't a man of many words," she said, "but the ones he chose, he meant them." Anna reached out and touched the edge of the paper with 2 fingers like it might vanish. "He would have liked this trip. He would have loved this trip," Marie said, "especially the boat ride." Peter gave a soft laugh. "And the waffles." They sat for a while in the gentle quiet. Outside, the rain softened, tapping at the window panes with the patience of someone who knows they'll be invited in eventually. Clara stood and went to the fire, adding a few logs from the nearby stack. The flames caught slowly, orange and gold threading back into the room. "I didn't know he wrote things like that," she said. Marie nodded. "He wrote a lot, not for anyone else, just to put things somewhere." Anna looked at her. "Do you think he meant for you to find it now?" Marie smiled, not answering right away. "I think he knew I'd find it when I needed it." They stayed in the lounge longer than planned, not saying much, but feeling full in the quiet way families sometimes do. The letter remained on the table between teacups and cookie crumbs, like a guest who had always been part of the room. Later, in her room, Anna lay in bed with the sound of the rain and the firelight still in her memory. She imagined her father sitting at a little cafe table in Bruges, pen in hand, thinking about a future he'd only hoped for, and getting it, even if for less time than he wanted. She closed her eyes and whispered, "Thank you," and sleep took her gently like a memory she wasn't quite ready to let go of. The next day passed slowly, in the best kind of way. Anna spent the morning sitting by the canal with a notebook she didn't write in. Peter bought a second-hand scarf from a market stall after losing his own. Clara wandered the edge of the city, where stone turned into woods and bridges narrowed into footpaths. Marie stayed in, reading a mystery novel by the fireplace and occasionally writing the margins. It was the sort of day where time didn't rush. It stretched out like a cat in the sun. That evening, they had dinner planned at the B&B. Thomas had offered to make a simple meal for them. Nothing fancy, but warm, he said with a wink. They were invited to eat in the private courtyard behind the house, a little stone space draped with vines and lit by 2 strands of string lights that buzzed faintly overhead. The table was long and wooden, a bit uneven, and set with mismatched plates and heavy cutlery. A pitcher of cold water beaded with condensation sat in the middle, next to a loaf of bread wrapped in cloth. Marie arrived last, wearing a dark blue shawl and holding a bottle of wine. "I thought this night needed a little red," she said, lifting it for them to see. The food came out in two waves: roasted vegetables and rosemary potatoes, then a chicken stew that smelled like thyme and slow hours. They served themselves, passed the bread, poured wine, and ate with the kind of appetite that comes from doing very little all day. "I love this table," Clara said, running her hand along the scratched surface. "Feels like it has stories." Peter nodded. "Probably 100 birthday cakes and arguments about politics." "Or travel plans made and never taken," Anna added. "Or taken," Marie said. "Sometimes people follow through." They ate slowly, not because they were tired, but because there was no reason to be fast. The sky above them shifted from pale gray to soft indigo. A bird chirped once, then fell silent. From somewhere in the distance came the faint sound of a church bell. Between bites, they talked about nothing urgent: favorite books, travel disasters, the time Anna accidentally washed Peter's phone in the laundry when they were kids. "I still say that was your fault," he muttered with a smirk. "You left it in your pants." "You folded the pants." Marie watched them with a kind of quiet satisfaction, her glass held lightly in one hand. "You know," she said, "hearing you laugh together is better than any birthday gift you could have brought me." That quieted them in a good way. They sat back, forks resting on empty plates, glasses catching the flicker of the overhead lights. For a while, no one spoke. The silence wasn't awkward. It was full. Full of the years between them, the space that had stretched and narrowed, the ache of things not said, and the comfort of things that didn't need saying anymore. Thomas appeared with a plate of chocolate tart slices and a pot of coffee. "No rush," he said as he set them down, "but dessert helps you linger." They did linger. Over tart, over coffee, over one more story about their dad that none of them remembered quite the same way. "He definitely didn't own a leather jacket," Anna said. "He absolutely did," Peter insisted. "It was brown." "That wasn't leather," Marie said with a laugh. "It was vinyl. He wore it in college until the sleeves cracked." Clara leaned back in her chair, smiling up at the sky, which had deepened into a navy quilt scattered with stars. "I wish we had this at home," she said softly. Peter looked around. "What, the courtyard?" "This, the space, the time, the feeling." Marie nodded. "It's not about the place. It's about how you carry it with you." Anna looked at her mother and then at her siblings. "Let's not wait so long next time." They all agreed, without needing to say much more. The candles on the table burned low. The courtyard, with its vines and string lights, held them like a quiet frame around a favorite picture. Eventually, they stood, stretching, collecting plates, hugging. The night had cooled, and their breath came out in soft puffs. And when the door closed behind them, the courtyard remained, silent, glowing, holding the memory of their laughter in its stone. The morning came quietly, as it tends to in Bruges. Pale sunlight touched the tops of the buildings, and the canals moved slowly, like they too were reluctant to begin the day. In the kitchen of Maison Godefroy, the kettle hissed softly on the stove, while toast popped up 2 slices at a time. Thomas moved with practiced ease, humming a tune no one quite recognized. Anna was the first one packed. She had arranged her clothes carefully the night before, folded her sweater just so, zipped her bag while the room still glowed with leftover warmth from the courtyard dinner. Clara moved slower. She stood at her window longer than usual, taking one last photo of the rooftop view, as if it would change between shutter clicks. Peter, ever practical, tossed his book into his backpack with one hand and finished a piece of bread with the other. They met downstairs without needing to agree on a time. Some things didn't require planning. Marie was already seated at the table with a cup of tea in front of her and a small envelope resting near her plate. "I have something for you," she said. They sat down, curious but quiet. Marie slid the envelope toward Anna. "It's not dramatic," she added. "Just something simple, a little tradition I wanted to start." Anna opened it and found 3 small cards inside, one for each of them. Handwritten, as always. Each card was different, but the closing line was the same. "Take care of each other. That's the best gift you can give me." No one said much after that. They didn't need to. They finished their coffee, wiped crumbs from their plates, and helped clear the table. The little rituals of departure. The taxi came at 9:30, pulling up just as the clouds shifted and a bit of soft light broke through. The driver stepped out to help with the bags. He spoke in quiet Dutch, his tone respectful, as though he could sense this wasn't just any goodbye. At the front door, Marie hugged each of them. Anna first, who held her tight, then Peter, who patted her back with both warmth and restraint, then Clara, who whispered, "You're still the best person I know." "I'll see you all soon," Marie said, smiling, though her eyes shimmered just a little. "Don't let the quiet disappear when you leave." They promised her they wouldn't, and meant it. As the taxi pulled away, Clara turned to look back through the window. Marie waved once, then stepped back inside. The blue door closed gently behind her. The ride to the station was mostly silent. Not a heavy silence, just one filled with thought. The kind of silence that sits comfortably between people who have remembered how to belong to each other. At the station, they waited together on the platform, sipping lukewarm tea from paper cups and watching pigeons flutter along the tracks. The train to Brussels arrived right on time. They boarded, found their seats, and settled in. As the city began to slide past the window, Peter opened his book, but didn't read it. Anna leaned her head back and closed her eyes. Clara pulled out her camera, snapped one last photo of the station platform fading behind them, then set it aside. None of them spoke until the train was well into the countryside. "I'm glad we came," Anna said. "Me too," Peter said. Clara nodded. "Next time, maybe Amsterdam?" "Maybe," Anna said, smiling. The train hummed beneath them. Fields rolled by, villages blurred in the distance, and somewhere behind them Bruges sat in the morning light, still, quiet, and filled with everything they'd left behind. Laughter, old letters, melted chocolate, rain on rooftops, and a courtyard glowing with memory. The kind of trip you don't talk about constantly, but carry with you like a folded note in your coat pocket. Pulled out once in a while, read slowly, and kept.